We all know Scar as the evil lion that killed his own brother, the villain of the Pride Lands that all the lions hated most. But what if things had gone totally different from the very beginning? What if Scar, also known as Taka, had actually gotten his wish and became king instead of his brother, Mufasa? Would he have been the great ruler he always thought he could be? Or was he always going to turn into the villain we know? Because when we look at the Mufasa movie, we get to see Taka's backstory, and honestly, it makes you wonder what might have happened if he'd gotten the chance to prove himself as king first. So let's dive into this different timeline and see just how crazy Milele, which later became the Pride Lands, might have looked with Taka on the throne from the moment they arrived there. To understand this story better, we have to go back to when Taka and Mufasa were still young cubs. We see in the Mufasa movie that Taka had always felt like he was living in his brother's shadow. Mufasa got to learn all these great hunting skills while living with the lionesses, and he was brave as well. But Taka, well, the only one he was supposed to learn anything from was his lazy father Obasi, who was always laying in the shade all day. Because Taka never really got the chance to learn any skills, everyone seemed to start liking Mufasa better, even though Taka was the real heir, the one born to be king one day. But as you all have probably seen, things went a little different than planned, because there were the outsiders. Since Obasi had always been too lazy to stay in shape, he knew his pride had no chance against them. So he sent Taka away with Mufasa to become king in another pride. But still, he is sure his son will be king, and in this video, he's actually right. Because even though they still meet Sarabi, Zazu, and Rafiki on their way in their search for Milele, this time Taka can let go of the betrayal from his brother. He just moves on. Even though he is a little pissed off that Mufasa always seems to be better at everything than him. So, when they reach Milele, there are no outsiders, but the animals in Milele are still lost without a leader. So this time, Taka stands up. Because Mufasa still supports the idea that Taka has to be king. And to our surprise, Taka really wants to be a good king at first. He's not sitting there plotting evil schemes or anything like that. He just wants to prove that he's better than Mufasa, that he deserves all the respect and admiration that everyone always gave to his brother. But here's where things start to get complicated. Because wanting to be a good king and actually being able to be a good king, well, those are very different things. See, Taka isn't brave like Mufasa, not even close. We saw this so clearly with the Mufasa movie, right? When danger comes, when there's a real threat that needs to be faced, Taka freezes up. And ruling a pride? Well, that is a lot of pressure that comes with a lot of dangerous situations. Pretty soon, Taka starts to realize that being king isn't just about sitting on a rock and having everyone bow to you. It's about actually protecting your pride, making decisions that could mean life or death for everyone under your care. So, when animals come to him complaining about something, Taka doesn't know what to do. The only example of a king he has ever had was his father, Obasi, and I think we all know that the way he ruled wasn't the best for the kingdom. And now, it wasn't even only about lions, lots of different kinds of animals with lots of different problems started to come to Taka. But as suspected, Taka didn't know how to handle anything. But luckily for animals, Mufasa was still there to help. Even though he's not the chosen king, he can't help but step in when he sees animals in danger. It's just who he is. So, while Taka is paralyzed with fear and uncertainty, Mufasa is out there actually solving problems, helping animals in need, showing the kind of natural leadership that you just can't fake. The animals start to notice this pretty quickly. They see their supposed king hiding, while this other lion, who isn't even supposed to be in charge, is the one actually taking care of them. It's like everyone knows deep down who their leader is, but they have to pretend to follow Taka because he is on the throne. So, we've got this situation where Taka is the official king, but Mufasa is the one everyone actually turns to when they need help. The elephants have a problem, they end up talking to Mufasa. The meerkats are in danger, somehow Mufasa is the one who shows up to save them. And Mufasa, being the good guy that he is, just helps everyone. He doesn't try to undermine his brother or make him look bad, he's just genuinely concerned about the well-being of the animals in their new home. But his actions make it really, really obvious who the natural leader is. But to make things even worse, there's still Sarabi. Taka knew she chose Mufasa on their way to Milele, but when Taka got the throne, she changed her mind all of a sudden. But I hear y'all think now, what would have happened to Sarabi in this case? Because Sarabi's father had always told her that she needed to stand by a king, that her duty as a lioness was to support whoever was in charge of the pride. So even though her heart is pulling her towards Mufasa, her sense of duty is telling her that she needs to try to make things work with Taka. And, well, Taka, he was hungry for a bit of love, so he took Sarabi in with open arms, even though he knew deep down she wanted Mufasa. And in the beginning, she really does try. Sarabi isn't the kind of lioness to just give up on something without putting in effort. She tries to see the good in Taka, tries to find ways to connect with him and to support him. But Taka is making this incredibly difficult for her. He's not just hoping that she'll choose him, he's actively trying to force their relationship. He's possessive, he's demanding, and he seems to think that being king means he automatically deserves her love and attention. Every time Sarabi tries to have a conversation with Mufasa, Taka gets jealous and suspicious. Every time she doesn't show him the exact level of affection he thinks he deserves, he gets upset and starts demanding to know why she's not more devoted to him. It's like he thinks being king gives him ownership over her feelings, which is definitely not how love works. So, what happens? The more Taka pushes, the more uncomfortable Sarabi becomes, and eventually she becomes more and more distant from him. She just couldn't shake the connection she felt with Mufasa. So, not that long after Taka became king, she started to see him in secret while Taka was sleeping in the shade. She knew that Mufasa would make a better leader, and that must be why her heart lay with him. And Sarabi wasn't the only one. All the other animals started to love Mufasa more too. Now, a good leader might look at this situation and think, okay, I need to learn from Mufasa. I need to figure out what he's doing right and try to improve myself. But Taka doesn't think like that. Instead of trying to become a better leader, he starts to resent his brother even more. And that's where we see the Taka we know coming up. So, what does Taka do? He starts treating Mufasa like some kind of servant. Oh, the elephants are having some problems with their water source, Mufasa. You go deal with it. The hyenas are causing trouble at the border. Mufasa, go handle that. There's a dispute between the zebras and the wildebeest. Mufasa, figure it out. Basically, Taka makes Mufasa do all the actual king stuff, while he sits around feeling sorry for himself and nursing his wounded pride. And of course, Mufasa does it, because that's just who he is. He cares about everyone and wants to help, even if his brother is being a total jerk about it. And Mufasa's mother had to watch all of this happen. But after some time, she was done. This wasn't fair. Mufasa could be much more than this, and that is what he deserved. She tried to convince Mufasa to do something about this, that this isn't how you should be treated by your brother. But Mufasa kept on rejecting his mother's help, since he still felt like he owed Taka this. But then, everything comes to a head when Taka finds out the truth about Sarabi and Mufasa. Because when Taka realizes what's happening, that Sarabi has been seeing Mufasa, that her heart was never really his to begin with, he absolutely loses it. This is his breaking point. This is the moment when whatever tiny bit of goodness might have been left in him just disappears. Because in his mind, his brother has taken everything from him. Mufasa has the respect of the animals, the love of the lioness he wants, the natural leadership skills that Taka will never have. Even his own mother seemed to love Mufasa more than she ever did Taka. And now he's found out that they've been going behind his back. It doesn't matter that Sarabi was never really his in the first place. It doesn't matter that he tried to force a relationship that she never wanted. In Taka's mind, Mufasa has betrayed him in the worst possible way, and there's no coming back from that. So what does Taka do? He goes full villain mode. He starts withholding food from everyone who still talks with Mufasa as punishment. If the animals want to love Mufasa so much, then they can starve while their beloved hero tries to figure out how to feed them. He begins destroying parts of Milele out of anger, poisoning water sources, driving away prey animals, making life miserable for everyone. If he can't be the king that everyone loves and respects, then he's gonna make sure everyone suffers. If he can't have Sarabi's love, then he's gonna make her regret ever choosing someone else. If the animals want Mufasa as their leader so badly, then they can see how he handles a kingdom that's falling apart. But now, even Mufasa's mom had enough. While it was getting dark outside, she secretly visited him and demanded him to do something about it. She knew this wasn't what he was made for. He was her brave, long-lost son who survived as a cub all alone. He had to step up and save Milele. That even his mom started to see it was a real turning point for Mufasa, and he decided he had had enough. So he first went to his other brother, Rafiki, and asked him to help with a plan. Rafiki was waiting for this and already painted something on his wall. Rafiki's plan was to unite the animals and chase Taka away with violence. But Mufasa still wanted to give his brother one more chance, because after all, he was still the one who had saved his life. So the next morning, Mufasa went up to Taka to discuss it with him. He knew he shouldn't have seen Sarabi behind his back, but he just couldn't let all the animals of Milele suffer under that. So he asked Taka if he could help him rebuild Milele, and he told him that his fault wasn't the fault of all these animals. Something had to change, things couldn't go on any longer, but instead of feeling sorry for the animals, Taka started to lose it. He started to attack Mufasa. Of course, Mufasa was way stronger than him, but Rafiki was prepared and had taken some animals with him to watch how Mufasa's talk would go, and as expected, he was right. So, Rafiki comes into action, and together with all the other animals, they help to chase Taka from Milele. As he's leaving, the animals turn to Mufasa and basically say, "You're our king now, you always should have been." But Mufasa doesn't even want the title. He just wants everyone to be safe and happy, but he accepts the responsibility because that's what a real leader does. He stands together with Sarabi, and together they will rule over what they now called the Pride Lands. So there's Taka, wandering around the Outlands, feeling sorry for himself and plotting revenge. He's convinced that everyone betrayed him, that he was the victim in all of this. In his mind, he was just trying to be a good king and everyone turned against him for no reason. And that's when he meets Zira. Now, Zira is not easily impressed. She's tough, and she's been surviving in the harsh Outlands for who knows how long. But when she sees this angry, resentful lion ranting about how Milele is supposed to be his, she sees an opportunity. She starts filling his head with ideas about revenge, about taking back what's rightfully his. She tells him that he was too soft before, too concerned with what others thought. She says that a real king takes what he wants by force, that mercy is weakness, that the only way to rule is through fear and power. They start planning together, how they're going to destroy Mufasa, how they're going to take over the Pride Lands, and how they're going to make everyone pay for daring to reject him. Eventually, Zira really started to fall for him. She finally had someone care about her, a strong, evil lion, just how she wanted it. And not long after, Zira gets pregnant. because Taka needed an heir, since he still felt he was the rightful king and he was gonna show them. But he knew he couldn't do it alone, so he starts making other friends in the Outlands. This is when he started plotting with the hyenas. Taka promises them all sorts of things if they would help him. And, well, for the hyenas, anything was better than living in the Outlands without any food, so they were easily convinced to stick with Taka. But when he actually made the plan, he told Zira to stay behind, that would be much safer for her. But deep down, he had another reason for that. Even after everything that's happened, he still thinks he might have a shot with Sarabi. He still believes that if he can just get rid of Mufasa, everything will go back to how it was supposed to be. But I think we all know Taka was very wrong about that. Because not long after Mufasa and Sarabi started ruling over the Pride Lands, they got a little cub named Simba. But this didn't stop Taka, and he comes in with his master plan, just like he would have in the real story. This plan leads to Mufasa's death, and everyone is devastated. But there wasn't much they could do. Taka thinks that now he is the king, Sarabi would come to him, but he couldn't be more wrong. Sarabi's heart lay with Mufasa, and it always will. So, when he had no other choice, he still went to see Zira often in the Outlands. But he kept on lying to her about how the Pride Lands were. He told her it was far too dangerous for her to live there, and that they would be much happier living in the Outlands. And Zira, who was all ears over tail in love with Taka, completely fell for it. Eventually, Simba will return and save everyone, just like what would have happened if Mufasa would have been king from the beginning. So, here's the big question. Even if Taka had been chosen as king from the beginning, would things still have turned out differently? And honestly, I don't think so. I think the story would have ended exactly the same way, just with a few different details along the path. But his evil mind would still have come out to light one day. The only big difference is that he would still be called Taka, since he never would have gotten his scar if he didn't betray Mufasa. But some of you say that him being called Scar has a big influence on his life choices. For example, if Mufasa would have said, "Help me Taka," instead of "Help me Scar," when he was hanging above the cliff, then he might still have been alive. But I think that Taka was just wired a little differently, and the unlucky things he had to go through kind of activated that evil desire in him. So, even in this alternate timeline where Taka got everything he thought he wanted from the very beginning, the crown, the recognition, the chance to prove himself, he probably still would have found a way to mess it up. Because at the end of the day, being a good king isn't about being chosen, it's about who you are inside. What do you think? Do you believe Taka could have been a good king if things have gone differently from the start? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But for the ones who have already forgotten about the Mufasa movie and don't remember everything that happened during Taka's childhood, well, I have a video about Taka and his father Obasi. Because, as I just said, it is probably because of how Taka was on the inside. But was that really his fault? Go ahead, go check out that video and I'll explain to you how his father played a huge part in this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, and I'll catch you next time.